Welcome, everybody, to Tammy Tuesday, the podcast of life, love, and purpose. We're happy you could join us today. I'm super excited to introduce our guest today. He is a 5-time best-selling author, executive business coach, God talker, all things incredible and amazing. Please, I'm happy to share with you, Ed Rush. Thank you so much for being here, Ed.
What's up, Tammy? So we got to know each other the last couple of months. It's been awesome just finding out more about your mission. We met in your hometown of Scottsdale. We were doing a business event there a couple of months ago. So it's an honor to be on the show, man. I'm excited.
I'm happy you're here. I'm honored. I know you're a busy guy, very popular, have lots of really amazing things going on. So yes, we did. We had the opportunity to meet actually through our friend, Nicole, who owns Niche Publishing. She's amazing. And it was all because of me speaking with her about the potential of publishing my book, which was awesome because that's how I discovered you. It was actually in her materials that she sent over, and I saw your incredible book, God Talks. Here it is. And as soon as I read it, Ed, I was immediately enamored. Not only did you make me laugh, you made me think, and you also opened the fact that what you do and how you help people and coach them, not just in business, but also in life, has all to do with our connection with our higher power, which, most people call God. A lot of people call it a lot of different things, but I'm enamored with your work. I think you do incredible things. So share with us a little bit about your background, because you were a Top Gun fighter pilot. So you've come a long way. You've shifted in many, many ways. Share with us about that.
Way back in the day. So if you've watched the movie Top Gun, so everyone watched the first movie. And I think everybody watched the second movie, but I joined the Marines in between the two movies. And by the way, thank you for your comments about the book. So there's two parts to the book that I get the most comments about. The first one is the humor. It's a fun book, as you know. It's a serious topic, having a conversation with God, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't need to be, you can't be fun about it. And the second part is the subtitle of the book is Even If You've Made a Million Mistakes. So the title is God Talks. The actual full subtitle is How to Have a Friendship with God, Even If You've Made a Million Mistakes. And I will tell you, I have had more people than I have fingers and toes to count who've come up to me and shown me the book and pointed at the subtitle, the bottom of the subtitle, and said, "That's me. That's me, the million mistake guy." And I'm always like, "Why are you whispering?" But there really is something to that. I always tell people who write books, like, there's really two H's. One is humor and the other one is humility. Nobody wants to learn, success secrets from a perfect person because, there's no such thing, and everyone knows that. And the second thing is, if you're going to deliver information that could be hard to swallow or that takes, some understanding to really get it through, the humor really breaks down the barriers, and it also just keeps people moving. So thank you for your comments about the book. It was a blast. Excuse me for coughing. I'm just getting over a cold. It was a blast writing it, and it's been a blast seeing the results from people. But yeah, I was a Marine. I guess I still consider myself a Marine. I flew F-18s from 1999 all the way through 2006. I was in the Marine Corps for 13 years, flew F-18s, I flew A4s, I flew F-5s, which basically are, if you've seen Top Gun, the first one, those are the bad guy airplanes. I flew a MiG-21, a Chinese-made MiG-21. I fought against a MiG-29, so I had a really wonderful career, even though I failed kindergarten. And I always tell people that because the one part of my bio that people do like to talk about is the fact that I graduated from Top Gun, the school, from the movie. But I always tell people I failed kindergarten, and I'm not proud of that. My daughter just recently graduated from kindergarten with honors, by the way, with honors. She graduated with honors. I failed my first attempt at kindergarten. And I realized when watching my daughter go through kindergarten, it is the easiest subject matter. It's like stacking blocks, not eating the glue. And the reason I tell you that story is really simple. It's like, by the way, I did look at the classes. There is a colors class, coloring. There's a class for coloring. There is a class in kindergarten called stories. Like, that's how hard the subject matter is. So we're talking about blocks, coloring, and stories. And somehow I managed to fail that basic material. And I always tell people that because I'm like, the strategies that I teach, they do take some effort. and some implementation. But I always tell people they're going to be easy and simple because they needed to be for me to understand them. So that's where we are.
Yeah. Well, again, going back to just how I got to know or seek you out really was through that book. And the humor to me is a huge piece of it because life is interesting. And if we can't find the humor in it, oh my gosh, we are so missing out. Everybody knows, you've met my husband. He makes me laugh hysterically all the time. I am all about laughter and finding joy and keeping a sense of humor and keeping things light, because if you're too serious, life just gets away from you. So I loved that aspect of the book. But the thing that I also love the most about what you talked about is that you really share your discovery of your connection with God and how you receive guidance and, information that's pivotal for you to make decisions. And I love that piece of it. I don't know that everybody realizes that you can have a conversation with God, and that's not just you speaking to him, it's him speaking to you. Talk about that, because it's a huge piece of what you do and what your mission is and what I believe much of your purpose is here. So talk about that. It's powerful.
Yeah. So, and by the way, when you say someone can have a conversation with God, it's anyone.
Yes.
And I have to tell you, the biggest shock and surprise of my life, and this is not even an exaggeration, has been the variation of people who God was willing to have a conversation with. And I'm talking about some people, first of all, people that you wouldn't think, like I've taught atheists to talk to. I one of my very first events, the events now are called God Talks. But back then, before I even had that brand name, I used to do these events called the Ultimate Breakthrough. And in the first hour and a half of the event, people would ask God questions about themselves. It was literally like the beginning of God Talks. And one of my events, I had this woman walk in, like when the event starts, like for the first, if you ever do events, if you're listening to Tammy and I talk about this, because we both do, if you ever do events, like the first hour and a half, like people walk in, let's say you have a 200 person event, you'll have like 150 people there at the beginning of the event. And in the next 2 hours, you have people walk in and join, people catching flights or, missing their alarm or whatever. And so I was doing this event never forget this. It was in Dallas. It was about 6 years ago. And right in the middle of the exercise, I said, now you're going to ask God questions about yourself. And as I said that, this woman walks in the door, who I got to know really well later on, but I didn't know her then. She walked in and she heard me say, you're going to ask God questions about yourself. And this woman was an atheist. And when I say atheist, I'm not talking about like not sure. I'm talking about one of these people you meet who is like adamant about the fact that God does not exist, period. And she's got the proof to tell you why, And she walks in the door and she hears Ed go, well, you're going to ask God a question about yourself. And every instinct inside of her body was to like pick up her enrollment materials, drop them back off the counter and walk out the door. But to her credit, she comes walking in and she sits down. About an hour later on a break, she came up to me with a yellow pad of paper. If you're watching the video, you can see this, but if you're listening on audio, I'm holding this like yellow, like a legal pad of paper, like the normal yellow pad of paper. And she comes up to me on the break and she goes, Ed, I have 2 pages of notes from God. How does that work? And I was like, she goes, I have 2 pages of notes from God and I'm an atheist. How does that work? And I'm like, well, that's more like your question to answer than my question to answer. I kind of know how it works. And I will just tell you, it's been fascinating to me. So when I started, I came from a very conservative, a very, very rigid belief system. I'll just put it to you that way. The belief system I grew up in and the one that I made my way into my 30s in did not acknowledge God speaking at all, except for maybe like 2,000 years ago. There was no personal sort of like conversational thing at all. And I was taught that God can't even hear the prayer of a person who doesn't believe in him. Like literally people were like, God cannot hear the prayer of the sinner. That's like what I was born with. And then as I grew up, even as I started having this conversation with God, I still had in the back of my mind this God who was sort of angry, or at the very least was like disappointed, maybe he wasn't angry all the time, but he certainly was disappointed.
A judging
and
God.
I started hearing what's that?
A judging God.
Yeah. I mean, like that was that. And that, by the way, if you were in that context, and I know so many people that I love who are still in that very rigid sort of very, very conservative sort of Christian thing. If you're in that context, it makes sense why God would be a God of judgment. You look out at the evils of the world and you have no control over being able to manipulate them. And so you just assume, well, everything gets settled in the afterlife. And by the way, I think God does settle things. I think he's really good at balancing the scales. And but I also think he's love, you know? And so everything he does is out of love, even the part where he just balances the scales, you know? And I think he's a lot more fun than we give him credit for. He's got a fantastic sense of humor. Clearly,
Yes.
he
Yes.
created us and platypuses, you know? And, but anyway, I came out of this very conservative, like really rigid thing. And then all of a sudden, God started speaking to me. And I remember the pastor I had at the time, I told him, I said, I'm having these conversations with God. And he goes, man, I wouldn't do that. He goes, I wouldn't do that. It could get really
Mm,
hokey.
mm.
And I tell people he's right about one thing. He was right. It can get hokey, but clearly he was wrong about telling me not to. And so I did it for myself for years. I never told anyone about it. Then I started sharing it at my events. I teach business events. I started sharing this idea at my events, and the breakthroughs that began happening, it was almost like I found the secret. You have this key around your neck that you wear. I almost found like the secret key that unlocked the final thing that people needed. And when I started ushering people into a conversation with God, what I realized is I could move into the background. We could first hear from Him, hear true wisdom, and then we could help build their business and their strategy around that. And it's made all the difference in the world. And I will tell you, I've 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 introduced some wonderful people to God, and I've also introduced some people that, if I can just be really transparent and honest, I didn't think were very good people, you know, and may have been living in such a way or communicating in such a way, or their products or whatever, that I didn't totally agree with. And I thought, well, if anybody's going to hear, you know, bad news from God, it's going to be that guy. And he sat down and did the exercise, and God just pours out His love. And I thought, how kind, you know, of God not to take my assessment of somebody's morality, because, you know, we're all on this journey. And there's things I've done and said, you know, that I wish I didn't do or say. And there were times in my life when I was, you know, a lot worse than I am now, frankly. And like, it's just fascinating to see how kind and loving God is. And then also on a business perspective, and you came to one of my business events, how interested God is in the details of business. I'm talking about
Hmm.
things like lead generation, what social media app to use, how to connect with your customers. It's been crazy. And it's been
Yeah.
a really fun journey.
It's amazing. You know, it's funny. I have a question for you. Speaking about, because when you're talking about this, like you said, you were having your own experience, your own relationship. You weren't sharing it, and then you decided, okay, I want to share this with the world. When you decided to do that, because just like you said, and people with different upbringings, you're triggered by words, right? So even the word God can be a trigger for people. They might, you know, associate that with a heavy religious undertone. There's lots of ways to look at that for people. How do you address that? Because people use the meaning of what God is. They use lots of different words to describe it. They're just words to me. I know what it
Yeah.
means for me. But how do you address that with people? Because like you said, you had an atheist woman come into your event. She probably thought, whoa, I don't believe in God. I have no higher belief. So how do you address that with people that struggle with that word?
Yeah, it's good. I'll just say, like, I have not had much pushback on the word God. And by the way, I purposely don't use, like, for example, I don't use the phrase Christian, even though that's a phrase that we're all used to. I don't use Republican or Democrat. I don't use meditation. Like, for example, we do breathing exercises at the event that lead into conversations with God. Some people would call that a meditation. I don't use that term at all, just because that's a loaded term for a lot of people. They're not sure like what that means. And so I try to generally to avoid those terms. I will tell you, the woman, the atheist, is a fascinating story. So when she sat down at my event, just kind of taking you back into the story because it'll help answer this question. When she sat down at my event, she said to herself, well, I already know God doesn't exist, so I'll just have a conversation with my subconscious. That's what she said.
Okay. Yep.
So she said, I'll just have a conversation with my subconscious. All right. So now she sits down, and the first question, and this is literally the first question in the book too. It's, what lies do I believe about me? That's the very first question.
Hmm.
And she wrote down, what lies do I believe about me? And then God spoke to her and said, that you are ugly and that I don't like you. Uh,
Wow.
and and literally she started weeping. You know,
Hmm.
we're like passing out tissues. So let's just assume now she realizes she's not having a conversation with her subconscious mind at this point. You know,
Right.
and then and then the next question which is a beautiful question, is what's true about me? And God said, what's true about you is that I love you. I've always loved you, and that you're beautiful to me. And what had happened that I didn't know, but that I soon found out, was that at age 5, that's how old my youngest daughter is, 5 years old. At age 5, all the way to age 17, when she was being dropped off at college, her father had been sexually abusing her for 12 years,
Mm.
like unbelievable, you know? Like I'm a Marine, and the first thing I want to do is grab a shotgun. I mean,
Mm.
dad's gone, by the way, but like that's the kind of, like, you feel that inside of you, like that, the horror of what that would do to a young girl. And she never told anyone. She never told anyone. I was the
Wow.
second person she ever told that to. She told her husband, and then when God started speaking to her, and then she told me, and then 3 months after, she's sitting in my event taking notes. 3 months after that, she's standing up on my stage telling an entire audience that
Oh,
story. That's the kind of breakthrough that this woman had.
right. Wow.
And God healed her heart. I mean, I'm telling you, that that pain, that secret, that whatever that was for her, that she had pushed so far down her heart, it took 2 sentences for God to completely unpack that. And I have to say, fully transparently, I understand why a woman like that can't believe in God. If
Sure.
your earthly father is so horrible, how could you possibly believe in a heavenly one? You know?
Hmm.
And God was very patient with her. She asked me, she literally was like, what should I do? Should I go to church? I'm like, you just let God father you for a while. Like, you just let him pour into your heart. And she found freedom. And actually, she helped a lot of other people find freedom too. She teaches and helps women. Like, it's crazy the way this thing has gone full circle. But for her, she's like, okay, I'll just have a conversation with my subconscious. And I have found, for the most part, the world is really cool with the idea of God, with the idea of divine intelligence. Once you get down into a religious stream, people get a little bit, they get a little, testy, because they've been hurt. A lot of people have been hurt by the church or by
Right.
religious streams.
Hmm.
And by the way, God is healing that too. So, for example, um, I was at an event once, and this woman, I said from the stage, I said the name Jesus, and I literally watched a woman in the front row recoil, like I had just, like said something, profane or whatever. And she came up to me that night at the end of the event. She said, I love it when you talk about God. I love when you talk about God. That feels very life giving to me. She said, but when you say the name Jesus, she goes, it really feels off for me. And she's like, I'm
Hmm.
not exactly sure why. And I told her, I said, I know why. I said, could you imagine you were this wonderful, perfect person that changed the world, shared a message of hope, healed people, and then 200 years after you died, people start doing awful things like starting wars and slaughtering entire nations of people, and then they say they were doing it in your name. Like, that's what happened to that man's name. Some people did some really bad things underneath the banner of his name, and the name
Right.
got a bad brand,
Hmm.
and so yeah, a lot of times people are okay coming to God. It's sometimes the more sort of like um uh religiously connected words, but then eventually people can come to that when they understand, like what I just told you about Jesus. When they understand the real story,
Hmm.
then they're like, oh, he's love too,
Right. Right.
but a lot of times people are hurt. Like, I know I've been hurt by the church, you know and you have to undo that, and the fastest way to undo that is a conversation with God, frankly.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, it's interesting to me too. You had said this on a group. You've built such an amazing community, Ed, of people that are connecting to this, and it's resonating with. It's
It's so much
raising the
fun.
vibration of the world, and I
Yeah,
love it. I'm grateful.
yeah.
And you were on a Zoom call in the community just a couple of days ago, and I loved what you talked about. You talked about bias, and that's a powerful thing. And I'm going to take this in two directions. One of them is specific to religious undertones. People have bias based on their experiences, right? So they have these preconceived ideas based on what's been drilled into them since they were young. And they think that's why certain things trigger them, and they feel it makes them uncomfortable. Like, you said the word Jesus and it made that woman just cringe
Yeah.
because of her religious upbringing. The flip side of that coin is when you take biases like that, regardless of what the topic is that you're discussing, whether it's politics or whether it's religion, whatever the topic is, and you can bring yourself back to center on it and take away your own preconceived ideas, which is our bias, right? Talk about that, because that's a really powerful tool for people to use when they're around everybody, and it erases judgment. It makes it more clear. You don't make decisions based on those feelings. So talk about that,
Yeah.
because I thought it was really powerful.
Really great. Thank you for bringing that up. It's a wonderful question, and it's perfect timing. So we're right in the middle. If you're listening to this on audio, we're basically right in the middle of the 2024 presidential election, and we've basically been worse to each other for about the last 80 years in our country, and it is not getting better. And like, I have two boys. I have four kids, but two of them are boys. They're 16 and 15. They're very close to each other. They argue and fight all the time, and a lot of times the argument starts, one of them is right, one of them is wrong. Someone took something they shouldn't have taken, someone ate something they weren't supposed to eat. But then the other person, like, one of the most common things I say to my boys is, hey, you were right, but you were wrong about being right. So
Mhm.
so like, our entire nation right now is a nation full of self-righteous people who are probably right and wrong about being right. There you mentioned frequency, like, there is literally a physical strength that you receive in joy and love and peace, and there's also debilitating strength that comes along with things like anger and fear. And if you follow, for example, even the most astute political commentators, most of what you hear is scarcity, fear, and anger, and that is not good for you, whether they're right or not. It's really important when you look at the world to understand that even though the person you're listening to might be right about something, what they're doing to you in terms of your ability to help and change the world or even change yourself may not be positive. It's an interesting thought. But bias, it's interesting when you think about bias. The human brain was literally designed for bias. It's not a design fault, it's a design feature. So,
Mhm.
for example, like, if you walk through the airport, like, I'm heading out on a trip here in a couple weeks. I'm going to Tennessee, then I'm going to Charlotte, like, a couple weeks, and then come back. So when I go through the airport, I'll go through three separate airports. When I go through the airport, there's one gate here that's got 150 people. There's another gate that's got 100 people. There's another gate that's got 150. And inevitably, at some point in one of those airport trips, I guarantee I'll see someone I know. I'll be like, "Oh, hey, John, what's up?" Like, one person out of 1,500 people. And what's crazy is your brain. There's a little feature in your brain called the RAS. It's the reticular activating system. It is literally the filter. Your brain is taking in so much input right now. Like, literally, as you're listening to this or watching this podcast, there are thousands of stimuli coming in. There's noises that you weren't paying attention to. There's visual stimulation all over the place that you're not paying attention to because you're listening or watching this. But the moment I mention all those things, you see, oh my goodness, there's all the stuff that's around you. But when you're walking through the airport, your brain is literally filtering all that stuff out. But it feeds you John because it doesn't feed John. It goes, oh, that's John, John, and it keeps it into your conscious mind. And so that bias, that filter system, is actually a blessing. It is a wonderful feature of your brain. You would go crazy without it. You wouldn't know what to do with all this sensory input, especially in our day and age, all the stimulus that's coming in. So it is a way that we were created. At the same time, understanding that is part of your brain system is particularly helpful. And the reason I say that is because we are in a stage where it is nearly impossible to get someone out of their view of almost anything. Okay, like, for example, our political conundrum is one of those. But like, another example is, for example, like, back in 2020, 2021, like, the issue of the day on the docket, I don't intend to take a side on this issue, by the way, I'm just bringing it up, was the whole idea of vaccines, right? And I had, in my coaching group at the time, I had four different groups of people. Okay, one group of people were the ones who were like, the vaccine has got government tracking devices and nobody should take it. The second group of people were the people who are like, I'm not going to take the vaccine, but it's okay if someone else does. The third group of people were like, I'm going to take the vaccine and it's okay if someone else doesn't. And the fourth group of people were like, the government should force everyone to get it. Like, literally, I had all four of those people in my group.
Mhm.
Okay. And I love all of them. Like, I loved all of them. And so someone was like, are you going to require a vaccine to join the group? And I said, look, I got all four people, man. The moment I start talking about this issue, I'm already going to alienate like half of the
Right.
group,
Yep.
and I will tell you, if the first group was talking to the fourth group, dude, they could talk for 3 straight months and no one would change their mind,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so the very first thing, and I'm not talking about this issue, I'm talking about bias. The very first and most important step is just simple awareness. The simple ability to hold the things that you hold dear as far as your belief systems a little less dear, and just to be able to look at them potentially with a different viewpoint. I'll give you an example, a very, very political example, by the way. One of my best friends, literally, like, dude, I was at this guy's wedding. We started a business together. Like, one of my best friends is literally the most left guy that I know. I'm talking about like way extreme left, far left progressive. Dude buses people to the polling place. Like, I'm talking like he's voted for everybody on the left hand side. And I used to be a Republican. I'm not. I'm sort of I'm like, it's hard to define at this point.
Hmm.
Um, uh, but anyway, he and I have had more conversations about more issues that are on both of the sides. But the thing that we have in common is we love each other. We're very good friends. We love each other. We really do care about each other's opinion, and we like, having a beer together every once in a while and talking about politics. And we were having a conversation one day about the issue of the Second Amendment, the gun issue. And I said to him, "Hey man, I just went hunting in South Dakota," and I said, What do you think about that?" He goes, "Well, no one should ever own a gun." And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, I was just hunting, you know?" And I said, "What about the farmer? The farmer has like, 1,000 acres and he's got wild animals on the property. Should he own a gun?" He's like, "No, he should be able to take care of his wild animals some other way." I thought, oh man, that's a very different viewpoint than mine. Now, that sounds extreme. By the way, I sound extreme. He sounds extreme until you understand that my friend, when he was 1 years old, literally one, watched his mom take a gun out and shoot his dad. Literally one.
Wow.
Okay. Now,
My
thank
gosh.
God she wasn't a good shot because dad lived. Okay. But
Wow.
nonetheless, can you imagine what your brain would be like if you watched your mom shoot your dad? I would suggest to you that it's probably a pretty good uh, certainty that you would grow up believing that no one should ever use a gun or own a gun ever. Okay. And the reason I tell that story is the farmer I knew in South Dakota would look at my friend and think he was some sort of wacko liberal. My friend would look at that farmer in South Dakota and think he was some sort of wing extremist. And you know what? They're both right. They are both right in the context that they're actually talking about. And yet, neither one of them would be willing to give up their context to be able to simply have a conversation. I will tell you, it starts with awareness. And its
Hmm.
second thing is it starts with a conversation, just the ability to like hold on to something long enough to be able to consider it. And I will tell you that folks, like, I grew up in that very stodgy, sort of staunch religious community. We didn't entertain other ideas. We entertained the idea of making fun of them, you know. But then you come to realize, maybe, like just maybe, God isn't as easy to define as that super conservative religion. Like, you understand, God is infinite and immortal, and He doesn't really fit into boxes really well. Like
Hmm.
he's just really good at not being able to be defined by our little teeny human systems. And so, yeah, and it's really important as a culture right now. Like, we have a choice, especially here in the United States. We have a choice. We can go back about 150 years if we want to, and we can devolve into literally like a new civil war. Or as human beings, we can evolve, and it all starts with a conversation. By the way, it starts with love. You have to be able to look at someone that you disagree with and go, I love you. I love you and I love your heart. We may disagree on things, but if you start there, you can totally change the world. And regrettably, we have like 535 roughly people in Congress across the House of Representatives and the Senate. And I would argue very few of those people would start with what I just described, and that's one of the reasons why we're where we are right now. So
Right.
I say it's high time to get started.
Well, it's a huge perspective shift. And this is one of the things that and I don't really talk politics here because it's such a touchy subject. However, I think this is a really important point, and that is you talk about how our views on what that is in the world today is based on a very small majority of the population. It's the ones who are doing the talking. You take a tour in person, you're not going to find what you're hearing on all of those platforms. And that is so fascinating to me. And I've talked about this about social media before. Social media it has its advantages and its disadvantages. And in this regard, I feel so much that because it's such a free way to access information, the information that we may see in places like that are biased and they're really loud because they have the platform to do that. So my husband and I talk about this all the time. Eric and I say to our kids, in fact, we talked about it when I had my son on here not long ago. What was your experience person to person? When you're standing there with a human face to face, what interaction are you having? Are they judging you? Are they being racist? Are they being political? Are they pushing their views on you? No. they're inherently good and they want to help each other. It's the squeakiness in the platforms that make it seem like it may be something that it's not. And you also said something else. The people, especially when it comes to politics, the people that actually may have something good to share, they don't want to do it, right? They don't want to do it because how difficult would it be to be in that position? There's, again, so much bias and there's sides, and most people say, no, thank you. And one of the things I've said to you is I love that you're like, well, you know what? Who's going to do it? Somebody's got to do it. So I hope and pray, and I'm hoping God's going to tell you it's you, somebody like you who's willing to step up.
Sometime soon, we're going to start this little American mission. But the interesting thing, the way that you said that is perfect. I mean, I've had people that I walked up to. I pray for people all the time, right? And as I'm praying for them, I'm listening to God because that's what I do. Like I have somewhat constant conversation with Him, and I've seen people that I knew for sure, definitively, God was calling into governmental leadership. Literally, I could see sometimes the office that they were going into. And I would have people go, I'd say, have you ever thought about running for office like governor or mayor? And they go, well, I have, but I just decided like I didn't want that for my family. That's what they always say, by the way. They always say I didn't want that for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, what do you think it's going to like ruin your family or something? They're like, yeah, I don't think it might. And I said, well, what gives you the impression that the thing that God wants you to do, if you say yes to God, that will be the thing that ruins your family? I said, how do you know that's not the thing that will bring your family together? Like we have this idea,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that like people will say this when we talk about money. I love talking about money, especially because a lot of good people have really gigantic mental blocks when it comes to money.
Yes.
And I have people go, yeah, I do want to have money, but I just, I don't want it to turn me into a bad person. And I'm always asking them like, so do you pray to God for health? Yeah. You pray God that God would bless your family? Yeah. You pray God like bless your country? Yeah. Do at the end of any of those prayers, do you go, but I don't want it to ruin me? Like, do you say, God, please give me good health, but please don't let it ruin me? God, please give me a good family, but please don't let it ruin me. God, please give us a good country, but don't let it ruin. The only one, literally, that people are like, don't let the money ruin me. I said, how do you know that God's blessing might not turn things around for you? Like all the struggles you're having, all the difficulties you're having, potentially God giving you money could solve those things, not the other way around. Like we have this like idea sometimes as good people that these things that we want so badly are going to hurt us. But like, what would it be like if I mentioned the 500? I think it's 530. Oh, what was the number? I think it's like 536 roughly members of Congress. What if 536 of those people woke up in the morning and they took out their journal and the first thing they did is spend 10 minutes having a conversation with God?
Mm.
Well, what if when a bill came through the thing, instead of having already decided what they were going to do, instead of already writing their hateful speech, about like how horrible everyone is, what if they just got together, I don't know, for 10 or 20 minutes, Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, everybody in the middle and the right and the left and everywhere else, what if they just sat down and said, I think I know what I'm going to decide on this gun control bill, but let's just sit down and pray about it. Why don't we? Why don't we spend 10 or 20 minutes just asking God? Like it would change everything. And by the way, there's a historical precedent for this. If you look and simply read, like the Old Testament talks about these kings and queens and the way that they led, and the ones when the country was prosperous, everyone when the country was prosperous, you will see literally the king going, "All right, let's ask God about this one." And that's a loose translation, by the way, of what the original Hebrew said, but it basically translates to, okay, well, let's ask God about this one. Through catastrophe, in crisis, through war, through famine, you see these men and women who are going before God and going, let's just ask God about this one. And honestly, the solution, I don't mean to make like every solution, the system that I wrote in this little book that's behind me, but I'm not kidding you. Almost every problem can be solved simply by simply starting with a conversation with God. And having the openness, I mean, I mentioned this when we were talking about bias, having the openness just to release for just a minute, whatever your preconceived, like notion is. It's, by the way, it's a reason why the hardest person to hear accurately about in your conversation with God is you.
Right.
When you release sort of, what, and just say, hey, God, whatever it is, like whatever it is, when you get to that point, you can start hearing some really accurate things about yourself too. And man, when you let go, and by the way, all it is ego. I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
mean to be so direct about this, but like your belief system whatever you believe, like as you're listening to this, anywhere politically, anywhere when it comes to like religion, anywhere when it comes to sort of like the way you raise your kids or whatever, all the 100 issues. If you're just willing for just a moment, just to let go long enough to just have the conversation, you may find that instead of knowledge, what you start to get is wisdom. And I will tell you, the first step for me to understanding and really see, to be able to approach the world with wisdom, the very first step, second of fear of God, because that's what it says, is just being able to let go and letting go. Just, for me, I don't know what it was like for you as you're listening to this, but for me, it was a letting go of ego.
Mm.
You had to be okay not being right,
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
I'll give you an example. In this little book I wrote, God Talks, in the book, I say, there's a line that I say, which I love this line, by the way. I mean, I really love it. The line says, human beings, it says, humans are the only creatures who create more than we consume. We're the only creatures who create more than we consume. And I believe that with all my heart until about last week. And I was doing a coaching day with one of my coaching members, and he goes, he raises bees, okay? And he goes, by the way, that thing you said about humans, that's not right. He goes, bees create more than they consume. He said, bees create 10 times more honey than the hive will ever need. And I was like, dang, now I got to go edit my book. But it was awesome because I was like, that's great. And then it's made me start to think, and I'm like, cows produce more milk than the babies will need.
Mm-hmm.
Sheep produce more milk than the babies will need. That's why we have all this wonderful cheese. Goats produce more. Like, I started going through all these animals that produce, and I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot God's whole economy is multiplication.
Oh yeah.
So the downside is I have to change the book, right? Or put a footnote in. I think I'm just going to put a footnote and be like, hey, I was wrong about this. But the upside is, as long as you're willing to let go of your your desire to be right about everything is ego, okay? And I'm just
Mm-hmm,
going right at it. And I'm
mm-hmm.
not saying you're a bad person or anything. I'm just saying this is my journey. The moment I let go of being right, of having to be right, you know, once I let that go, what I discovered was, instead of having knowledge, what I got was wisdom. And wisdom just, is about 100 million times better than knowledge. And that approach to life, I mean, dude, if I had a time machine, I mean, I keep calling you dude. I should call you Dudette.
It's okay.
Dudette,
I'm
if
a
I had a
boy
time
mom. You
machine.
know this. It's all good with me.
Yeah. If I had a time machine and I could just go back, oh my goodness, 15 years and just talk to me 15 years ago, it would make a huge difference. I would be telling him what I'm telling you right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
fun topic.
powerful. It's really interesting with people when they look at that and how much that can change. And I love that you use the word knowledge and wisdom. There is a difference. And wisdom truly is not of your human brain or your human experience, really. It's much bigger than that. You can implement it into your human experience, but that's the difference. If you know the difference, you can change how you respond to life, how you thrive, all the things that you do, all the choices that you make. There's a big difference in that. You touched on something earlier, and this is a really important topic that I love that you discuss in this conversation with God. It's money. So me, myself, I am so guilty of feeling unworthy of money, right? So many of us are. We're worried that it's going to ruin us. We're worried that it's going to be, people think it's the root of all evil. They have this bad conception of what money can do for us. And God is only abundance, right? So why on earth would he not want us to have that? So talk about the way you look at that and how you coach on that, because it's such an important piece. And abundance doesn't always come in the form of money, by the way. It comes in lots of things. So, but the bottom line is it's about abundance, and why wouldn't God want you to have that? So talk about that a little bit. It's really important.
Yeah, it's really great. Thank you for asking the question. I love this topic, by the way. Oftentimes we shy away from this topic. But I am a business owner, entrepreneur, and I teach and train business owners and entrepreneurs. And I will tell you, I've been doing this for 15 years. I probably have 200,000 people that follow me. I probably have another 10,000 that have been to events. I've got 650 plus people that I've worked with one-on-one. By the way, these are people who pay me $25,000 or more to work with them, right? So I've been knee to knee, face to face with a lot of entrepreneurs. And I will tell you, almost every entrepreneur has an issue, like a block somewhere around money. And if God is trying to send you resources and you're pushing it away, you should shift your approach towards receiving everything that he wants to give you. Okay. And I will just say it comes in multiple forms right now. The world that we live in trains people early on that money is evil. Like if you watch movies, like I watch movies, like I got 4 kids, man. Friday night is movie night. And I
Yeah.
will tell you, I've watched 500 movies and I've yet in a movie to see like a really wonderful billionaire. You know, like when the billionaire shows up in the movie, the music changes and you're like, oh, that
Right.
guy's a jerk.
Yep.
You know,
Hmm.
even Batman, you know, was weird. So like every time, every single time, the you don't ever see the news like talk about this wonderful rich person. You don't see the women on The View who are like, oh, let's talk about all these amazing rich people. Nobody. Okay. And so you're trained by the world. But the second thing is if you grew up in the church like I did, you were literally trained from the very beginning that the only thing that really is good to do with your money is to give it away. If you just, you know, as long as you give it away, you're totally fine. And then what happens is there's this massive void. There's this huge void. And so let me give you an example. Like one of my goals is to buy Disney. I would like to buy Disney, and we're building a coalition of people, and we're going to buy Disney. Okay, and I don't think there's any surprise that Disney has significantly departed from its original intent. Okay,
Hmm.
it's family friendly entertainment. Man, I love going to Disneyland, but I think in general most families don't agree with the direction that the company's gone, and you can see that by the way by their share price. You can see that by their movie
Hmm.
movie releases. They're not making as much money as they used to because they're not getting as much support as they used to. And there was this big movement like maybe 8 years ago to like boycott Disney. Let's boycott Disney. But there's two problems that were wrong with that. Number one, I like going to Disney. I have a family that likes going to Disney. And the second thing is the Rush family boycotting Disney. You think like the CEO of Disney sitting around like, oh no, please no. Oh, we lost a family of 6. Oh no. You know, it's not a big deal, right? But if you
Mm.
own Disney, well, maybe you should be able to make some changes, right? And so what happens is because we don't own the resources of the world. So look, prayer is wonderful and it's very important. Uh, Good thoughts are wonderful and they're very important. Okay, like encouragement is wonderful and very important. But when it comes to the economy, the way the world operates, if you want to change things, it requires money. Okay, and I'm just going directly at this. Like if you want to, for example, let's say you want to change. Like we have a massive issue in our world, on our country for sure, but like in the world when it comes to human trafficking. Okay, especially when it comes to young women. If you want to change that, you could pray about it for the rest of your life and you may be able to make some changes. Just so you know, prayer does work. But if you had like $1 billion and you put $1 billion in solving that problem, you'd get to that problem.
Hmm.
Like you get to that problem fast, okay? Because that's because the means and the way the actual world operates is a transactional world. So when Elon Musk bought Twitter, he was acting more like a kingdom-minded person than most kingdom-minded people act because he understood that you could talk about Twitter and you could be like, oh my gosh, they're so bad or whatever. And then but if you buy it, you own it. And then you can make the kind of changes that you want to.
Right.
And so the first thing when it comes to money is that we have to get our head around an understanding of that's the way the world operates. Okay. And none of the bad people right now are like, oh my gosh, I'm so unworthy. Why would God ever give me money? Like the people out there with no conscience who are ruining the world right now, they're not like, oh, I just feel like money's going to make me a bad. They don't even think about it. They don't even cross their mind, right? Now, the good people who should have all the money are like, oh, I don't know. Maybe it'll make me a bad person. Like,
Right.
maybe you should stop thinking like that.
Hmm.
Maybe you should think if God's going to give it to me, maybe I should have it. Like,
Right.
I have a 5-year-old. I just gave her a bike. A bike. Okay. And let me tell you, I gave her that bike. There's a couple things. First of all, she didn't even say thank you. It's crazy. She just started riding the bike. Do you think I care? No. I was so happy to watch her ride that bike. Second thing, you know what? She didn't go, Dad, I hope this bike doesn't make me a bad person. She didn't say that. You know why?
Right.
5-year-olds don't think like that.
Yep.
35-year-olds do.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
So listen, if God wants to send you money, then let him and get all that other crap out of your head. That comes from the pit of hell and smells like smoke. There is nothing in the way. There's nothing in the way. It's not going to make you a bad person. If you're a bad person, money's going to accelerate. If somebody's a bad person, money's going to accelerate their ability to be bad. If you're a good person with a good heart,
Right.
money's going to accelerate your. It's nothing more than a magnifying glass. And so, quite a bit of what we do at the events for sure, but also in the book, is breaking down the lies that you were taught and you were led to believe that are holding you back. And let me just tell you, I'm going to be very clear to the person who's listening to this podcast right now. If your bank account right now is not the way you want it to be, if your bills are higher than your bank account, or things have been difficult for you financially, there is a 100% chance that your thinking about money is off. And if you're thinking about money is off, you're not going to be able to receive money. Okay. And let me just say, God is sending you resources. Okay. stop pushing them away. Excuse me. Like take what God's sending to you and use it for good. We have to change the world, and it's not going well right now. And part of the reason it's not going well is because we don't have the resources, and it's time for that to change. So
Right. Well, it's all about intention. I mean, right. With money too, what are your intentions? If you have good and noble intentions as a good human, money's not going to hurt you. It's going to help you.
yeah, it's right on. And the other thing too is just like what you said, most good people, when they do the exercise around money, which is in the book, when they do the money exercise, most good people say, oh, the first lie they believe is that they're not worthy.
Right.
Right. And here's the thing, you are worthy. And the second thing is like, I had someone ask me the other day, a very religious guy, and he's like, what is your plan? What is your plan for your money? And I said, my plan, I have twofold plan. I said, I'm going to listen to God and reinvest the dividends.
Mm.
And he looked at me like I had just grown an asparagus out of my forehead because I think he was expecting me to be like, I'm going to give it all to Compassion International or whatever.
Right.
And I said, first of all, I have a constant conversation with God. So if God wants me to do something with my money, I'm already listening.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing, I said, when I say reinvest the dividends, what I mean is I'm committed to doing four things. Number one, giving. Number two, saving and investing. Number three, enjoying the gifts that God's given. And number four, planting new seeds. Right. And I'm like, there's four different things that I'm going to do with my money. And I'm hearing from God on all those things because I believe that I can be trusted. And nobody's teaching that. Well, I'm teaching it, but like no one else is teaching stuff like that right now. And it'll change the world. I'm telling you, once good people get their hands on the resources, we're going to be able to make a lot of a difference. So,
well, on that point, quickly before we wrap up, I do want to say something about that because that is one thing that does not exist in this world right now. Ed, is what you're doing is you're combining taking your understanding of spirituality and your own connection with God to help you in your business. And people don't understand that they go together. And I love that that's a core principle of everything that you do in your coaching, in your events, everything, your books, everything that you talk about is all about that. So I think it's a huge, powerful tool for people to understand that they really go together. Do you have any comments on just that?
For sure. Thank you. That's very astute. So yeah, here's the thing. Like most good people, when it comes to purpose, you know, most people in business, most entrepreneurs have a sense of purpose. Like they moved into whatever they were moving into because they had a sense of purpose. If you take one step back from that, most people feel in some way called, or like, you know, God sort of inspired them into whatever they do. But for most people, even spiritually connected people, that's about as far as the spiritual conversation goes. They felt called, they felt some sense of purpose. They felt like maybe the world needed whatever it is that they were sharing. And I will just tell you, the same God that, you know, created the whole world and all those little flowers out there, this beautiful spring, we're recording in this in April. He also knows the detail on all those little petals. It says that he counts the hair on your head, you know? And I just keep asking God, I'm like, I feel like I need to give you more hair to count. Could you hook me up with that? You know, but the point there is he knows all the details about everything, even the most minute little things. And he's interested in the details of your business too. That's what I've been really kind of helping business owners understand, which is you can go to God for the big things like purpose, like your business name, like your calling, but you can go to him for the little things like, how should I market my business today? How should I write this email? What subject line should I use? And even the most minute detail, we talk about AI and how brilliant AI is in helping us with all these problems. The AI is fine. It's not brilliant. It's fine. But I will tell you, you have access to divine wisdom, which is a lot better than an artificial intelligence computer full of ones and zeros.
Exactly.
It's unbelievable what God will share with you. And yeah, what I do now is really help business owners break through the lies that they're believing about their purpose, about the money, about their future, about themselves, and then show them literally how to start a daily conversation with God and break through into, and I mean this when I say this, millions, billions, literally there will be at least, I've already seen this in my prayer time with God, there will at least be 20 billionaires that come out of the community of people that I'm teaching. And that I'm just telling you, once people get their heads straight, the resources of this world will come rushing to you. And I'm excited to see it as part of my mission.
Well, I'm going to be one of those people. I'm volunteering.
All right. Deal. All right. You just gay. Like, you know, it's not even, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm just saying it's not even that hard. You just have to be willing to open yourself up to a new way of thinking, you know, a little less transactional. Most businesses
and receiving.
are very transactional. But yeah, receiving, you know, like even little things like I have a friend of mine. I get all these ideas, and I'm like, I'll be out and I get these ideas and I'll like write them down real quick. And I was telling this friend of mine and he goes, "Oh, I don't do that." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You don't write your ideas down?" He goes, "No, God's abundant. So ideas are abundant. So if I forget it, I know God will give me another one." And I'm like, that's kind of more like it actually.
That's the right
like
attitude. That's the truth.
it's right. It's like, hey, you know what? Your $1 million idea, that should come around about every couple days, And so
Seriously.
when you realize that, like we live there are asteroids flying by right now that have more wealth in terms of gold and precious metal resources than you could ever imagine. And they're just flying by. So God is an abundant God. Just connect with him on purpose and just see what happens, man. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Ed, I'm so grateful and honored that you took the time to be here today. I loved your message. I hope everybody else did. What is the best way for people to engage with you, to get your amazing wisdom that you have to share with them?
Yeah, super simple. So the website is godtalks.com. It is the easiest website on planet Earth to remember, godtalks.com. The book that's over my shoulder is called God Talks. You can get that anywhere books are sold. Like, just go to Amazon. And look, it's like $17 right now. Like, Amazon already discounted it. It's a great deal. It's like the best $20 you will spend. And I look, I'm biased, but that doesn't mean I'm not right. Okay. And the second thing is, when you go to the website, there's a place for you to put your name and email in. I have 7 audios you can have for free. They are the first 7 days of God Talks. I've got downloadable forms you can fill out, or worksheets that you can fill out. I've got a couple other freebies that you get there. And the most important thing about putting your name and email in, not all the free stuff, it's to stay on my notification list. Okay, listen, I will treat you well if you're on my email list. I'm not going to send you 5 emails a day. When I send an email out, it's important. Okay. And we do 3 times a year. We do these business events. They're called Wisdom for Business. You've never seen anything like this ever in your life. I guarantee you. I know it sounds like I'm bragging. I am, but it's that good. Okay. And you want to stay connected because when these events come around, you want to get in before the last one we sold out really quickly. You were there. It was full.
It was
Okay?
amazing. I highly recommend it.
A week and a half into promoting it, I'm like, we're going to sell this thing out. Watch this. And we did. And we had literally just enough seats. It was awesome. But you want to sign up for that because this is a group of world changing people. You've never been around people like this before in this kind of environment. And you will leave more empowered, more strengthened to do the mission that you have in the world, which I want you to do as well. Tammy, you are amazing. Thank you for your mission in the world too. We just love watching you grow and all the things that you're doing, and you're just taking off like a jet plane, man. I love to see it. So you just got to remember all of us little people when you become all rich and famous. Okay.
Well, you're going to help me do it. So you'll be right there with me.
Fair enough.
Thank you again. Thank all of you for joining us today and listening in to Ed's powerful message. He's got some great things to share. I highly recommend you reading his book. It is extremely powerful, life-changing. It made me seriously engage with all of his platforms. So pick it up today. Also, you can engage further with Tammy Tuesday at tammytuesday.com. Please like, follow, subscribe, comment. We love all of the feedback. That way we can have these messages reach more people. We appreciate you, always sending you with lots of love and light. And remember, life, love, and purpose, it all begins with you. Peace out.